This question will be for Suzette first, and then Jim, and then Sydney. Suzette, what is your vision for the Mequon Thiensville School District in 5 years, particularly in terms of enrollment, number of buildings or schools, and then the number of programs and employees? So where do you see it in relation to now?
Well, I think that's a challenge that we have to tackle going forward. The vision, I think, is pretty much further out than 5 years. And if you are at all attending some of our board meetings and part of the conversation recently in the community, you know that the school system in the school district board and administrative team are driving a conversation about where does the community see itself in 15 to 20 years? What is the role of the school district in that place in the community? Where is the interdependence and the interrelationship between the school system and the community? And what is the economic growth, health, and vitality of both the school system and the community? And that's a conversation we need to have together. It's not for me to decide where the school system should be in 5 years. My hope is that it will be healthy, vibrant, attracting young families, having the opportunity to provide opportunities of a well-rounded college prep education that we currently do. That's my hope. But I think it's for us together as community to have a serious conversation about where are we headed? What is the best use of our facilities? What should we do with our property? What is the future of Rangeline, Lakeshore, conglomerate facility over there? And those are questions the school district can't answer in isolation. That is dependent upon what's the future of this community. Where are we headed long term? And with that in mind, then the school district knows how to make some of the plans with regards to facility use, program, and what our enrollment will be. Our predictions have shown that we believe, and we had some outside help doing this, that our enrollment decline is going to level out in around the year 2014, 2015. So we've been managing a declining enrollment for almost 10 years, and we believe demographically and otherwise that that'll flatten out and will begin to show some stability in our enrollment. But let's make no mistake, our population is aging. In 10 years, it's gone from an average age of 40 to an average age of 50. We're an aging population in this community, and we need to look at what is the impact of that going forward 15 to 20 years for the school system. What are the things that are attractive to young families to come here like many of us did when our son was 18 months old and we chose to move to this district because of the schools and the low taxes? What's the balance between those? So for me to say we should have this many employees, this many buildings, and this should be our program menu really isn't, I'm sorry, but it's an inappropriate question. To me, the question is, as a community, when are we going to have the conversation about deciding where are we headed together? What is the place of the school district in that picture? And what is the vision we have as a community for our school district? I think that's really what the question is. Thank you.
Jim?
I agree. I think Suzette has hit the nail right on the head. The bottom line, I guess, is what can we do to benefit the students' educational process under the guise of benefiting the community as well? For if the schools fail or move into decline, property values will go down and we become perhaps mediocre. The rest of what she said is, and I guess that's in addition to what she said, the rest of what she said is very accurate. There's no way right now that we can as a school board or we can as individuals predict the future. We have a sense of how many students are coming into the district. We have a sense that there are approximately 180 kindergartners coming next year. We are graduating approximately 360 kids at the high school. I should tell you that we're in a decline. And in that decline offers challenges, but it also offers opportunities. We need to find the opportunities and we need to build on them. Thank you.
Sydney?
My vision in 5 years is quite different. 5 years is like 2 lifetimes in the business world. And unless Mequon Thiensville takes up a different tack, it cannot save itself with budget cuts into the future. A business cannot do that. There's going to need to be a definite change in some of the paradigms. For 10 years, you've had a 21-to-1 or a 20-to-1 student ratio. That possibly cannot sustain itself, nor does I even think it's necessary. There's going to have to be some radical change in the building footprint and how you use your facilities. There might be larger classrooms for those seniors who are about to go off on their own, and smaller classrooms for those impressionable young kids at the elementary age. You just cannot continue to do the same things, and I think it's really warranted that we take some dramatic changes. I don't want the metrics to change. It's a top-tier school system, but right now with the changes coming up, it's just table stakes to get started on the future.
The next question addresses finances. We'll start with you, Jim.
Okay.
If significant cuts are necessary based on revenue caps or a reduction in state funding, how would you go about determining what cuts will be made?
I think that the question would be better phrased as, what can we do to provide the best possible education given the limited amount of finances that we have? I can't tell you what to cut. I can tell you that cuts probably will pit one section against another section if we look at whatever that section may be. Do we try to avoid those cuts? I think so. And how do we do that? There may be a number of ways that we can do that in dealing with the various different associations, including the Teachers Association. But what to cut? In all honesty, nothing. Bottom line is, something will go. I just don't know what it is.
Sydney?
I think part of the answer is in what the talking points for the Mequon Thiensville school system put out, the board put on. I think they did a really good job of that. It's the process by which you get there. They talk about core curriculum. They talk about those things that make differentiate Mequon Thiensville from other school systems. There's a process that has to be inclusionary. And that process has to say, we're going to put all the things on the board, and we're not going to do one-offs, which I think is partly what has happened in the past. What is it the community is willing to go up and put a sticker on something and say, that I got to keep because it's a differentiator, and that has to go because I can't afford it. And I think part of the paradigm shift is we just think throwing money at things makes it better. I think it's more of the efficiency and effectiveness by which you use that money that will make a difference in terms of what actually ends up being the budget.
Suzette?
Thank you. I don't think in this district we've had a habit of throwing money at things. If anything, we've got 8 to 10 years of practice at managing, balancing, reducing revenue with increasing costs, 80% of which we haven't been able to control ourselves because they've been restricted through legislation, arbitration, or bargaining. Those costs have been the areas where the cuts have been made. We made a pretty significant decision this past fall that we were not going to nickel and dime our way through reductions anymore. We were going to propose, as one of our short-term talking points, one of our short-term strategies, was to establish a 0% salary freeze for the next 2 years going forward. And while that's not a sustainable strategy, it's a short-term strategy while we figure out what's going on at the state level and can then utilize the tools we're given there, the flexibility, the freedom out of those restrictions through legislation, arbitration, and negotiating, to use some of the tools to leverage going forward some midterm strategies in terms of balancing compensation and benefits with our revenues. And so we have a plan laid out. We have a roadmap. It has short-term strategies. It has midterm. And the long-term strategy is really this conversation at the community level about where are we headed. Will it happen in 5 years? No. But we do have a roadmap. And just for your own reference, you can find the budget proposals on our school district website and the 10-year list of reductions that have already been made as well. Thank you.
This question is for Sydney first, and then Suzette, and then Jim. And it's sort of the reverse of the question we just asked about cuts, and that is another person in the audience asked, do you have any ideas how the district can increase revenue?
Well, I think one of the short answers to that is there's about 824 students that don't go to this school system but yet live here. I don't know how many know that, but I've heard Dr. Means say that 50 or 60 students would make a difference. Now, what I find probably an opportunity here is that what's the reason that families and things choose not to go to this really fine school system? Now you can do the parochial parts, you can do the religious parts, you can do the fact that some families have the money to send people to private school. But I think it's what's the compelling notion that goes out and says, I can bring those students back in here and to make an immediate change on what the revenue limit proposition will be by doing that. I don't think that we can change zoning, we can do those things, but those are long-term types of things, and I don't think it's really going to make that much difference, at least not in the short term, to get through this real crisis that we have today. So I think it's attracting the current population back into the school system is going to be very helpful in the very near term.
Thank you. Two things. One is that we traditionally, over the course of the 20 years or so that I've been involved in the school district, have about 20% of our resident students go to private, parochial, and other schools. That's been a tradition. It hasn't varied a whole lot over the years, and that's based on people's values and choices for their families. Are there some students in that group who could potentially be our students? Very likely. We saw a bit of a bump of that this past year when because of the economy, we believe the tuition payments to be made to going to some private schools caused some people to choose what is also a very good public education. I would also say to you there are a variety of revenue generators. They almost all are related to increasing enrollment, whether it's establishing a virtual school, a charter school, a K-4 program, or bringing new families into the district. It all generates revenue by increasing our enrollment, which increases our tax base, our tax revenue base.
There is no easy way to increase revenue, short of the wonderful foundation coming into a couple of $100 million and setting up an endowment fund. Suzette's right. Sydney's right. We're talking about the only way to truly increase enrollment is, or the only way to increase funding is through enrollment. And we've got the chicken or the egg, which comes first. We talked about housing. Well, yeah, but that's a road that is fraught with potholes, I think. We talked about attracting. What do we attract? How do we attract them? What do we offer to bring the people in from the parochial and private schools? We need to have something that will appeal to the parents and something that will appeal to the students. And in the day and age when money is in decline, we need to be creative to try to figure out what those types of things can be. You're right. We've talked about charter schools, we've talked about virtual schools, we've talked about K-4, we've talked about Montessori schools, all as a part of the program, but they're all just that right now, talk. So where's that money going to come from? Unless the state turns it around, and I certainly hope they do, and we can continue to, and we will improve funding, I think we're at an impasse.